Good day, everybody. My name is Vasanth. I'm a NEET expert. I train NEET aspirants to achieve their dreams. And today we're going to see one of the part of the video of a chapter named Hereditary Evolution, where we are going to look into the certain topics and then we will go into the class. Okay, so let's get into the class and allow me some time, okay, to get the things up and running. So I hope everybody is able to see. Okay, I'm sharing. So let's continue. So topics that are going to be covered in this video would be theories of evolution, which are various types, and we'll be studying only a few of them because that's what is included in your syllabus. And then we'll study in detail about what is speciation and mechanism of speciation, like how it is actually executed, and then evolution by artificial selection, and we'll be learning about natural selection even, and then how human evolution have taken place. We are going to study about that only in brief, and then origin of life, like how the life itself originated and stuff. So we're going to study all these under these topics like in this video. So let's get into the theory of evolution first. Theory of evolution states that every species that is existing, so some existing species will be changing over time due to accumulation of variation. So this accumulation of variation would lead to like modification of the individual. Okay. This changes that the organism have undergone in the span of time, we call it as the evolution process, where the organism evolved into another organism from the pre-existing organism by acquiring few characteristics or even liberating few characteristics. So that is a possible. Okay. So this phenomenon is actually is going to never stop. There's no stopping for this phenomenon. So it is going to keep on happening. So which literally makes us or helps us to understand that we are not the permanent organism in this world. Okay, we are eventually going to be replaced by a better organism. Anytime sooner, not very sooner, at least in another 1,000 or million years or a possible period. Okay, so this naturally some of the variation that is going to happen, which is going to naturally move. But the problem is not everything is going to end up in a positive way. Some of them will not be able to survive the variation and the evolution will not happen. So the organism whose existence is supported because of the variation or the changes, then they will be existing. So that process is going to be very important in this case. So those theories on the basis of which evolution was explained was the first person, who is also called father of evolution, is called Darwin, Charles Darwin. He is actually a wonderful person. He is one who have framed the theories, and there are a lot of other people who also have framed the process of evolution, Lamarckism, and then Darwinism, which was proposed by Darwin, and several other features like modern theory. So there are different theories. So according to Darwin, he really relies on changes that happens naturally. Okay. And any superior organism which has the qualities and the variations that have acquired to survive the environment will survive. The organisms which have not acquired these characteristics to survive these changes, then they will be eliminated. So that's what Darwin's theory is all about. So it is not going to happen overnight. It's a gradual process. So let's say one thing keeps on happening, suddenly it fades out, okay, and then another thing takes place. So it's just that's how the process is. There will be constant expressivity of a character, an organism will be existing, and suddenly this organism fade out, and then another organism starts to progress. So this is called evolution. So sometimes both the organisms will tend to coexist with each other. So these are the theories of evolution. We are going to see all of these things in detail in the upcoming slides. So the theory of evolution was clearly explained by Darwin and Lamarck and several other characteristics. So Darwin's finches, this is one example where Darwin observed in the Galapagos Islands. Galapagos Islands there were like, only one type of finch, which was just ancestral seed-eating ground finch. But later, when in the different regions of the Galapagos Island, he observed different types of finch. So these different types of finches, they have their beak modified. Why their beak has to be modified? Because the availability of food, okay, was so different in different regions of the Galapagos Island. So to actually survive that region, so the birds have to adapt themselves to avail the food that is available. Let's say for an example, so large tree finch, medium tree finch, mangrove finch, and woodpecker finch, and then warbler finch, cocoa island finch, and small ground finch, medium ground finch, and then large ground finch, and then sharp beak ground finch, cactus ground, large cactus finch, vegetarian finch, a small tree finch, medium tree finch. So you can see these are mainly insects, based on insects, and the basic ancestral seed eating have diversified into several characteristics, in which most of them are mainly insect. Okay, some of them were like seed. Okay, and then some of them were cactus seeds and other parts of the plant, and some of them have some of them have adapted themselves in eating the buds and the fruits of the plants. So this, based on the modification of their food behavior, their characteristics, which is the beak shape and size and structure and the head, all of them have literally changed, but they had same ancestor. That's what evolution have given us an example of. And this is called adaptive radiation, where from one single organism, the organisms have radiated upon the process of adaptation. So that's why it's called adaptive radiation. Next one is giraffe. So giraffe is where they were like visually telling that the neck literally lengthens. Okay, yes, the neck literally lengthens, but the point is it is not lengthened by themselves. It actually because of the length of the trees that they have grown. So their inavailability of food have compelled them to stretch themselves in availing the food. So when they do so, the characteristics that they acquired was lengthy neck. So there were only lengthy neck giraffe? Definitely not. There were few organisms which were having short neck length of giraffe. So the organisms which were having short neck length, there were no inavailability of food for them. So it is obvious that they will extinct. Okay, this will be extinct. And the evolution have passed on the characteristics, and the stretching of neck have been extensively happened, and the giraffes who have only with the lengthy necks have survived. So this is one of the characteristic feature of the theories of evolution, which will explain the characteristic feature. And during the process of industrial revolution, okay, there was something called pepper moth. Okay, pepper moth. So they were actually having dark black spots in them, and this pepper moths were distinctly visible in any of the plants, because during the industrial revolution, so there were a lot of black dust, all over the plants. So when they were whitish in nature, it was clearly distinguished, and it was actually hunted very easily. So later they developed this black camouflage color, so that helped them to avoid being distinguished, and in the when they are present on a carbon deposited region. So this evolution of converting them from one to this actually made the moth to survive this aspect of being preyed upon. So this is also going to explain the theory of evolution. And these are the theories that we have to, which actually proves that the evolution is actually existing and how it has actually helped us to evolve and stuff. And the next thing is speciation. Speciation is a process of formation of new species from the already existing. So this is species one. So from this, another species is formed. So this process is called speciation. So species, what is species? Species is a lower group of organisms. They tend to undergo reproduction with each other. Okay, they produce an offspring. They have the ability to produce offspring. This is species. So from these species, they actually undergo reproduction and they form new species, which will be having accumulation of characteristics and stuff. So this is called speciation. This is due to so many things. So once after we study about how the speciation, we have to come back to the same point in how they stay that way, being isolated. Okay, so there are different types of speciation, like the methods of speciation. We're going to see how it actually happens. So these are mechanism of speciation. So the mechanism of speciation is like there are different types based on how the population is actually formed. The one is allopatric, peripatric, parapatric, and sympatric. So allopatric is where a barrier that is formed in between will isolate one population to two different, due to no relationship between these two distinguished population due to a barrier formation. So they tend to acquire different combination of characteristics, and later they will become a new species, completely new species. So they were same species, later they become new species, and which means they have come from another place. Okay, because of the barrier formed, it will form another place. So peripatric is where from a population, okay, and a population will be excluded. It will be formed. It will be extended outside. It will be like extended outside, and not okay, not at the what do you say? Completely distinguished, away from them. So now the point is, there will be no relation between the first population and the second population, and it will be like isolated to the periphery. So let's say, for an example, they have no relation over here. Okay, the next thing is parapatric. Parapatric is the population which is actually found beside them. So they will be existing in the at the periphery, and they'll be having a common line that actually binds. So they'll be having interactions, but still they'll be reproducing among themselves, not with the other population. Sympatric is where, due to polymorphism in the genetics, okay, the population which is already existing will be undergoing polymorphism. So they'll be within the population, they will form a new population. These are the types of speciation that will be we have studied about. One is allopatric, peripatric, parapatric, and sympatric. These are the different ones. So how are these actually formed? By isolating them in different ways, we can artificially create new organisms, new types, new characteristic combination that helps us to become a part of animal husbandry and agriculture, and even using a laboratory experiment. So new species could be induced, okay, which means it can be encouraged to form upon the process of by the formation or by the initiation of the process of speciation. So after the organisms have deviated from the existing species, so they need to have a barrier. Okay, we call them reproductive isolation. So reproductive isolation literally has a checkpoint to prevent them from both of them breeding and mixing together. Okay, so first one is, there are different types of reproductive isolation. One is temporal. Temporal is where they'll be having two different periods of reproduction, and behavioral is where they the way they choose their mate will be completely different. And internal barrier will be the chromosome number, the genetic composition will be completely incompatible, and they will not be producing a viable offspring which can be very effectively reproductive in nature. Okay, and the next one is mechanical barrier. Mechanical barrier is the shape, size, and the structure of the sex organ, and then the dysfunctional structures. So all these actually functions as a mechanical barrier, so that it will not allow the organisms to undergo reproduction anywhere, anytime. Okay, so this is the reproductive isolation. So I hope you have understood about speciation and mechanism of how speciation takes place. The next thing we are going to study about is evolution by artificial selection. Artificial selection is where it is just human interference on selecting a particular organism and breeding them for a particular purpose. So it is human who cultivates or who indulges in this process of segregating or assorting them on their particular characteristics are being expressed. So let's say, for an example, we have a basic wild mustard. When the mild mustards, when we talk about the stem, when it is being modified, then we call it kohlrabi. Okay, and when you want to have the leaf part of the plant, okay, we have kale. when we talk about the flower buds and the stems of that same plant, wild mustard, we have broccoli produced, and the Brussels sprouts are that nothing but the lateral buds of the leaf buds, which are actually the Brussels sprouts. And then cabbage is nothing but the terminal leaf bud, which tends to get enhanced and then developed and then artificially selected at that particular part. Okay, so that's the thing. And then cauliflower, which is actually the flower buds which are bloomed. So these are all, okay, actually different types of organism, different traits that are modified and collected from the wild mustard themselves. So different varieties are produced by artificial selection done by the human intelligence. So this is evolution with respect to artificial selection. So if you see any of these plants, you should remember that all of them were had a common parent plant called the wild mustard. This is called Brassica oleracea. Okay, that is actually the this is what you should understand from artificial selection. So human evolution. Human evolution didn't happen overnight. So it took a lot of time. Even we conceived as an embryo in a mother's womb, and then later we get delivered. It took more than 9 to 10 months even. So in this process, it is going to be very tedious. So then talk about the perfection that we have acquired so far, and what are the changes, what are the variations that we would have acquired, and how many organisms would have formed in the process of forming human being between the ancestors and human. So how many segments of organisms could have formed? So you should remember, you should understand this fact. Okay, so it is always a fact. It is always understood that misunderstood that we and human and apes are close relatives. Yes, we are close relatives, but the problem is we have not. So we are not come from ape. We have close relatives. That is actually true fact. So which means from one common ancestor, ape-like organism, okay, so have given birth to organisms in which one of them have the physical behavioral trait of a human being, okay, and another one had a physical and behavioral trait of an ape. So these two are originated from an ape-like common ancestor. So this actually happens approximately millions and millions of years ago, somewhere around 6 million years ago, which is also mentioned over here. So this is human evolution. So we'll study about that in detail. So how the origin of life have happened. So we should know, how did Earth come into existence? Like how did life have come into existence in this very thing? So if you see, we are organism, okay, organism. So when we go back behind, we are just organ systems. Organ system. So when we are just organ system, we are just organs that combine to form organ system. So the organs were formed from tissues. So tissues were formed from cells. So cells were formed from molecules, and molecules were formed from atom. So we can still go beyond this. So it is strictly understood that it is just a molecular substances and atomic substances that combine to form different types of molecules that literally forms the whole organism over here. That literally forms the whole organism over here. So upon nature's favoring, okay, nature's favoring us to undergo a lot of changes, all the molecular combinations that are being formed, and they get to become a cell, and then they combine to form tissues of different types, and these tissues form organs, and organs combine, different types of organs combine to form organ system, and different organ system combine to form the organism. So this have helped in origination of life. Okay, so this is how the natural selection have happened. Okay, so now when we talk about origin of life, you should understand that there was a big bang in almost like 15 billion years ago, and then because of which there will be like so many dust particles, and then actually spread all over the universe. And in this case, almost like 4.5 billion years ago, okay, our solar nebula, the solar system, is formed. Okay, so in this solar system, like the Earth were just mass material. So we all know that every material which has mass has its own gravity. So due to attraction of other molecules to one another, so it has grown into a bigger, okay, bigger structure. So bigger structure are short and then broken down into several broken down into species several times, and then after they have come united, it was covered with meteorite showers which actually had water molecules enclosed in them. So Earth covered with water again, and so water is one of the most important material for the existence of life itself. So now when you talk about like how the life have originated over here, so there are a lot of theories which were actually put forth. So you can see that, so one is special creation in Hindu culture, and even in Christian and Islamic culture. We have Sarda and Manu, who are said to be the first human being that are actually brought to the earth by God Himself. And Adam and Eve are the first born human being brought to the world by God Himself. So this is like a special creations. So this sounds really unreal. When you study about science, it sounds so unreal. The next one is spontaneous generation. The spontaneous generation is where out of nothing something have formed. Out of nothing something have formed. So it is just that I'll give you a few examples, that when a person who works so hard in the field and his shirt is so dirty and it is thrown on the floor, okay, so once after the next day he comes outside, he saw a rat ran out of it, the dress. So he realized that it was the dirty clothing from which the rats actually come. And then hard to believe this, the organisms tend to undergo hibernation. Okay, so hibernation which happens in the cold season, and then there's another thing called summer sleep, right? So summer sleep, during the process of summer sleep, the organisms of fishes and frogs will get them submerged into a marshy area, and then that gets dried up. So when the rain comes and the water is accumulated in that region, so the frog and the other organisms will be coming out, and that will be filled with the thing. So it forms a puddle. The water stagnates and forms a puddle, and that from that puddle the thing comes. So it was believed that the organisms have originated only from the puddle. So it is actually funny. So it's likewise there were like a lot of spontaneous generation. Okay, and then naturalistic or abiogenic theory. This is actually done by Oberon and Halden. So this is actually another theory which actually explains how an organism could be formed only from a naturalistic and an living organism, right? So this naturalistic and abiogenic theory suggests that any abiotic material, okay, abiotic material accumulates together to form the biotic material. So in which the simple organic compounds like with the monomers forms polymers. The polymers form hot soup, and the hot soups actually become conjugates or microspheres, and they contain nucleotides, and nucleotides become nucleic acids, and nucleic acid becomes a protocell or eobionts, and then they form prokaryotes. So this is a theory that they have suggested with abiogenetic theory, which is run by Oberon and Halden. But this theory was literally proved by the experiment done by Urey and Miller. Urey Miller's experiment, which actually proved the theory. So what does it actually do? They actually constructed a simulation which would have been the prehistoric Earth. So it was having a heat source, which the Earth was so hot and the water was available and all the condition was replicated. So water was having all the other materials which are also being mixed in the water. So when they are vapored, they are sent into the tube, and then the Earth was completely charged particles. So when the two charged clouds actually collides, they form electricity, which is the lightning. So when the lightning strikes the vapor, So the chemicals which are present in the form of vapor will undergo combinations, okay, and they will form different organic materials like water, methane, ammonia, hydrogen molecule, and carbon monoxide. So this literally, like maintains a primitive atmosphere. So this primitive atmosphere, when when the water, like a methane and ammonia, all of them were persisting. So then after the electric spark is introduced, so this reaction would have taken place, which resulted in formation of nucleotides and other materials like like primitive structures. So this really helps us understand like so many millions of years, billions of years. So that perfection was achieved, and then this organism have started to evolve, and now they are existing. So this experiment that was actually suggested or executed by Urey and Miller have clearly explained how the origination of life would have started from a molecular level to a complexier level. So this is a very good explanation of how the life have originated. So now we talk about speciation. We'll see some questions before we conclude the class. Speciation is a process of formation of new species from the existing species. So it is an evolutionary process. So new and distinctive species, which will be formation of new and distinctive species. So species evolve by genetic modification. So when the species is going to be formed new, it is because of the genetic variations that they have acquired. Okay, so far. So this new species will be existing, and the previous species will also be existing. They will be isolated. Okay, and the new species will not be able to mate with the old species. We have studied about reproductive barriers. Okay, the next thing, what are the four theories of evolution? So one is common descent and gradualism and multiplication of species and natural selection. These are the four theories of evolution. So you need to know all these things in detail. And thank you so much for your time with us, and I hope you have learned enough to help you understand the basic concepts. And if you have any more doubts, please post them in the online forum so that it can be addressed by any of the faculty and expert who have expertise in answering them. It could be even me, so I would be answering your questions very boldly with all the confident answers that you can expect from. And don't stop from we seeing only these videos. The live classes will be very much interactive, and I would be very much happy if you join us in the live classes. So please feel free to ask us for help. Okay? Thank you so much, guys. Have a nice day.